The music movement, often called punk or new wave, came to the fore in 1976. A group called The Clash were one of its leaders. Today, The Clash are an internationally popular group who, despite their commercial success, continues to use the pop music form as a vehicle to communicate their views of social and political issues. Their new single is called Radio Clash. Here's a clip.
Radio Clash on pirate satellite, orbiting your living room, cashing in the Bill of Rights. Human army surplus or refusing of the lights. This is Radio Clash on pirate satellite. Beep, beep.
That song is included in an upcoming film called Clash on Broadway, which you might remember revolves around last summer's Bond disco Clash performances, which were in the headlines when the fire department closed down the club for overcrowding. Now, joining me now are two members of the Clash. On my left, Joe Strummer, and on my right, Paul Simonon.
That's right.
Simonon. Okay, got the name straight. I was very interested in this because they came in to close the place down because it was overly crowded, and you did 6 more performances so that folk could get in. 16 more.
We did 17 in all. Was it 17 or 18?
We did 18. Saturdays as well.
Oh yeah, matinees.
And as a result, out of that came this, this movie that we just saw. Very interesting. It just wasn't of people coming and going inside bonds. It was shots of the South Bronx and very political kind of... What were you trying to say with this movie?
Well, it's for an Englishman to be in New York. Everything seems fascinating. And we had an English director for the movie, a man called Don Letts. And we just let him loose, really, in New York. You know, we're sort of paying for it ourselves. And he just filmed everything that he thought
represented the city?
Yeah, was interesting to him. And
well, this is not the first statement that you've made politically. I mean, you are known for this kind of thing. No Moon in June kind of songs. I mean, it really means something. You had your last album was Sandinista. 36 cuts on this tune. What's it like for you when you see an when you were so politically aware? What's it like for you to see an audience throwing bottles and cans and giving the kind of reputation to punk or new wave that we have come to see?
Well, the people who threw bottles in England were the people who hated punk, and punk got a dangerous reputation. But they weren't throwing the bottles, it was people throwing them like, oh, this group is rubbish, they only know 2 chords. Take that, you know.
Oh, yes, I see.
That's
because
what happened to us, anyway.
But there were other punk groups who encouraged that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, there was other people
so.
throwing glasses about, but we found it that the straightest, most normal type of college student was the worst type of bottle thrower.
Like the actual ones who were throwing the bottles, you know.
Well, like the Mummies boys.
Have you run across that here?
No. Well, people like us here, you know. We've sort of got a reputation now.
Well, one of the things that you did to make a reputation was record some reggae, which I think came as a surprise. After it was heard and released, it was received very well. So it's very difficult to start categorizing you guys as being any particular thing. How much does that bother you?
Well, I like to be free, because when people force you into do something, it gets boring if you have to do the same thing every time. Like, say, every night you have to...
It's like predictable, you know. We like to sort of challenge things and challenge ourselves as well, in the way of, like, we could take the easy way, which is to do everything that people expect us and want us to play, or take the other route, which is risk of them saying, no, don't want them no more, you know.
Well, that is a big risk, because I've been to performances where people expected a certain thing and they started booing or getting restless or walking out because they didn't get what you wanted. Have you ever encountered that before? Let's say you build up your following and people trusted you.
Well, no one trusted us because no one knew us, but we have cleared a few holes, I remember once we played till there was 1 person left in the club.
Now that is true dedication, because that's very difficult. And did the 1 person applaud, I hope?
No, they was asleep.
Sue asking questions she doesn't know answer to. They were asleep. Sorry about that. Oh, my goodness. Well, you did have problems in Europe. You went all around Europe. You had problems with the police. You had problems with permits and performing. You beat all that. You still drew crowds. And then when you got back to London, things had changed a bit.
That's right. We'd become famous a bit in London, and people follow you about, and all new experiences. If you're not famous before, you know, becomes a bit, puts you off a bit to have people talking about you and passing comments when you walk down the street, you know, oh, so-and-so done that, therefore this must mean that, you know.
I think the good thing about it was that the fact that people were actually coming up to us and say that they actually liked the new music we were doing, which sort of made us feel a lot better, because for a long time we'd received a lot of bad publicity, and we had just everything about our album and all that, and actual people on the street were coming up and saying they really liked it, which made us obviously feel a lot better.